Stop for a second and ask yourself, why are we so obsessed with the idea that our ancestors were helpless? We look at the Great Pyramid and say, aliens. We look at a disappearing ship and say, magic portals. We look at a crumbling temple and say, curse. It's almost as if we are afraid to admit the truth, because the truth isn't that we were visited by little green men. The truth is much more unsettling and, frankly, much more impressive. The truth is that humans, people just like you and me, with no computers, no lasers, and no electricity, figured out the secrets of the universe long before we did. They mastered chemistry, geology, and engineering in ways that we are only just beginning to rediscover. So, put aside the conspiracy theories for the next 15 minutes. Today, the lab coat is the new fedora, where we are going to strip away the supernatural to reveal the raw, unfiltered genius of the ancient world. From the bottom of the Atlantic to the sealed tombs of Egypt, this is the ancient blueprint. Let's start with the grandfather of all modern legends, the place where logic supposedly goes to die, the Bermuda Triangle. You know the story. It's a patch of ocean between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. The legend says that ships enter and simply vanish. Planes drop off the radar. No distress calls, no wreckage, just a void. For decades, writers have blamed everything from magnetic vortexes to the lost city of Atlantis pulling ships down from below. It is a terrifying idea, but if you take a step back and look at a map of global shipping lanes, the mystery starts to dissolve. This area isn't a lonely stretch of water. It is one of the busiest intersections on planet Earth. You have heavy cargo traffic moving north, pleasure cruisers moving south, and commercial flights crossing overhead every single minute. Now, add in the Gulf Stream. Think of the Gulf Stream as a massive, invisible river within the ocean. It is fast, it is volatile, and it can generate rogue waves that appear out of nowhere. Then, throw in the unpredictable tropical storms of the region. When you ask a marine insurer or a statistician about the Bermuda Triangle, they don't get goosebumps, they just show you the math. When you have that much traffic in an area with that much chaotic weather, you get accidents. Statistically, ships don't sink here any more often than they do in the other stormy seas of the world. The monster isn't a kraken, and it's not a portal to another dimension. It's just probability, combined with some very bad weather. But let's move from the open ocean to the claustrophobic silence of the desert. Let's talk about a place where people believe magic actually killed the explorers, the Valley of the Kings. The year is 1922. Howard Carter cracks the seal on Tutankhamun's tomb. It was the discovery of the century. But within months, members of the expedition began to die. The newspapers went wild. They called it the curse of the Pharaohs. They said the ancient priests had placed a hex on the tomb to punish anyone who disturbed the king's sleep. It makes for a fantastic movie script. But the killer wasn't a ghost. It was biology. Imagine a room sealed tight for 3,000 years. Inside, you have food offerings, wooden furniture, and organic matter. Over millennia, these things decay. In that darkness, a specific type of killer began to grow, Aspergillus flavus. It is a fungus that attacks the lungs. Alongside it, you have high concentrations of ammonia gas and formaldehyde. When Carter and his team broke that seal, they didn't unleash a magical spirit. They walked into a biological hazard zone without masks. The curse was a severe respiratory infection waiting for a host. The ancient Egyptians didn't need magic to protect their kings. Nature did the work for them. While we are on the subject of tombs, let's travel east to Xi'an, China, to witness a tragedy of chemistry. I'm sure you've seen the Terracotta Warriors. 8,000 life-sized soldiers standing in silent formation to guard the emperor in the afterlife. Today, when you see them in museums or photos, they are a ghostly gray. But here is the heartbreaking part. They weren't meant to be gray. When archaeologists first dug them up, these statues were vibrant. They were painted in bright reds, greens, and purples. But the moment, and I mean the very moment, they were exposed to the air, something terrible happened. The ancient artists had used a base coat of lacquer, made from the sap of a lacquer tree. It's incredibly durable underground, but it hates dry air. As soon as the moist soil was removed, the lacquer began to dehydrate. It curled, cracked, and flaked off. Observers watched in horror as the colors literally disintegrated before their eyes in less than 4 minutes. 4 minutes to destroy art that had lasted 2,000 years. It wasn't a curse stripping the soldiers of their glory. It was a rapid oxidation reaction, a failure of ancient polymer preservation that we were too slow to understand. Sometimes, however, the environment doesn't just destroy art, it alters the mind. Let's look at the Oracle of Delphi. For over 1,000 years, the most powerful people in the ancient world traveled to Greece to ask the Pythia, the high priestess, for advice. She would sit on a tripod over a crack in the rock, go into a trance, and speak with the voice of the god Apollo. Ancient writers were very specific. They said she inhaled sweet vapors rising from the earth. For a long time, modern historians dismissed this as flowery poetry. They said, "Rocks don't emit gas." They were wrong. In the early 2000s, a team of geologists analyzed the stone foundations of the temple. They discovered that the temple sits directly on top of 2 intersecting fault lines. The rock underneath is bituminous limestone, which is rich in petrochemicals. When the tectonic plates shifted and rubbed together, the friction heated the rock, releasing gases up through the cracks. The main gas? Ethylene. Now, ethylene is interesting. It has a sweet, flowery smell. In mild doses, it produces a feeling of euphoria and lightness. In higher doses, it causes hallucinations and a trance-like state. The oracle wasn't channeling a god. She was, quite literally, getting high on the geology of Greece. The divine intervention was actually a geological intoxication. Now, let's cross the ocean to the Americas, to a mystery that has haunted us for decades, the collapse of the Maya. We often picture the end of the Maya civilization as a sudden, spooky event. One day they were building massive pyramids in the jungle. The next, the cities were empty. Where did they go? Did aliens beam them up? Did a plague wipe them out overnight? The soil tells a different, much sadder story. By analyzing sediment layers from the bottom of lakes in the Yucatan Peninsula, scientists discovered a pattern of severe, century-long droughts. But here is the twist. The Maya might have accidentally helped cause it. To build their stunning white cities, they needed lime plaster. To make lime plaster, you have to burn limestone. And to burn limestone, you need wood, massive amounts of wood. The Maya deforested their own land to fuel their construction. When you cut down the jungle, you disrupt the local water cycle. The land gets hotter. The rain stops falling. It was a man-made ecological disaster. They didn't disappear into thin air. Their society collapsed because they ran out of water. They dispersed into the jungle to survive. It wasn't a supernatural mystery. It was climate change. Not every mystery is about destruction, though. Some are about creation that seems impossible. Let's talk about the Shroud of Turin. This is perhaps the most controversial artifact in history. Believers say it is the burial cloth of Jesus. Skeptics say it is a medieval forgery. Radiocarbon dating places the cloth in the 13th or 14th century, which suggests it's a fake. Case closed, right? Well, not quite. Because even if it is a fake, the science of how it was made is baffling. The image of the man on the shroud isn't painted on. There is no pigment, no dye, no brushstrokes. The image is actually a scorch mark, a dehydration of the linen fibers that is only a few microns deep. And here is the kicker. The image is a photographic negative. When you take a photo of the shroud and invert the colors, the face becomes clear and realistic. How did a medieval forger create a perfect photographic negative hundreds of years before the invention of photography? We honestly don't know. Science can tell us when the flax was harvested, but it is still struggling to explain how the image got there. Sometimes, debunking one part of a myth only reveals a deeper puzzle, from delicate cloth to solid metal. Let's travel to Delhi, India. Standing in the Qutb complex is an iron pillar. It is 1,600 years old. It stands in the open air, exposed to the intense heat and the heavy monsoon rains of India. By all laws of nature, it should be a pile of rust dust by now. But it isn't. It is perfectly preserved. For a long time, people whispered that the metal must be otherworldly, but modern metallurgy has found the answer. The ancient Indian blacksmiths used a technique we had forgotten. They used charcoal that was incredibly rich in phosphorus. Instead of removing the phosphorus, which is what we do in modern steelmaking, they kept it in. This phosphorus acts as a catalyst. It creates a thin, protective layer called mesa white that coats the iron. If the pillar gets scratched, the phosphorus reacts with the air and moisture to heal the wound. It is a passive, self-repairing protective film. We didn't lose this magic, we just changed our industrial processes. But those ancient smiths were master chemists, whether they knew the periodic table or not. And speaking of mastery, we have to talk about the pyramids of Giza. The Great Pyramid is a structure of 6 million tons, but the weight isn't the impressive part. The impressive part is the alignment. The pyramid is aligned to true north with an accuracy of 3/60ths of a degree. That is more precise than the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, London. People look at that precision and say, humans with copper chisels and ropes couldn't do that. It had to be aliens. But you can do it. You just need patience. Historians and astronomers have shown that the Egyptians likely used the stars. By tracking the circular path of a star rising and setting, and then bisecting that angle, you can find true north perfectly. You don't need lasers. You need a flat horizon, a piece of string, and decades of obsessive observation. The miracle of the pyramids isn't extraterrestrial technology, it is human organization. It is the ability to get thousands of people to work toward a single perfect goal for a generation. That is the real wonder. But if you want to see ancient engineering that actually outperforms modern technology, look at Roman concrete. Have you ever noticed how a modern road cracks and develops potholes after just 5 or 10 years? Yet the Pantheon in Rome, the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome, is still standing after 2,000 years. We used to think the Romans were just lucky. We saw white chunks in their concrete and assumed it was sloppy mixing. We were wrong. Those white chunks are lime clasts. And they are the secret weapon. When seawater or rain enters a crack in Roman concrete, it reacts with the lime. This chemical reaction creates new crystals that expand and fill the gap. The concrete literally heals itself. It gets stronger with time, not weaker. We are only just now, in the 21st century, trying to reverse engineer this primitive technology to save our own crumbling infrastructure. However, nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares you for the Antikythera mechanism. In 1901, divers found a rusted lump of bronze in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece. It looked like nothing, but when scientists finally X-rayed it, the scientific world dropped its jaw. Inside this rock were gears, differential gears, dozens of them interlocking with Swiss watch precision. This device, from 100 BC, was an analog computer. It could predict eclipses, track the erratic movement of the moon, follow the planets, and even calculate the dates of the Olympic Games. This level of technology shouldn't exist. We don't see gears this complex again until the mechanical clocks of the 14th century, 1,500 years later. It destroys the idea that human progress is a straight line. It proves that sometimes we climb the mountain of knowledge, and then we fall back down. We had the computer, and then we forgot it for a millennium. The ancients also mastered light. For years, we wondered how the Vikings crossed the Atlantic Ocean. They didn't have magnetic compasses, and in the far north, the sun is often hidden behind thick fog or clouds for days. How did they not get lost? The Viking sagas spoke of a magical sunstone. We thought it was a myth. But then, we found crystals of Iceland spar in an Elizabethan shipwreck. This crystal has a unique optical property called birefringence. It polarizes light. Even on a cloudy day, if you hold this crystal up and rotate it, it will change brightness when it aligns with the hidden sun. It effectively turns the sky into a map. The Vikings weren't using magic. They were using practical optical physics to navigate the open ocean. Now, I promised you honesty at the start of this journey. And the honest truth is that science hasn't cracked everything. There are still things that make us scratch our heads. Take the Baghdad battery, a clay jar, a copper cylinder, and an iron rod found in Iraq, dating back 2,000 years. If you fill it with vinegar or lemon juice, it produces a small electric voltage. That is a fact. We have proven it works. But why? Why did they make it? Was it used to electroplate gold onto silver jewelry? Was it a magic trick used by priests to give people a divine shock in a temple? Or was it just a jar for storing sacred scrolls that happened to have metal parts? We know the what, but we don't know the why. And then there is the ultimate headache, the Voynich manuscript. It sits in a vault at Yale University. It's a book from the early 1400s, full of strange illustrations of plants that don't exist on Earth, and written in a looping, flowing script that looks like a language, but isn't. Top codebreakers from World War II tried to crack it. They failed. Modern supercomputers and AI have tried to crack it. They failed. We cannot read a single word. Is it a hoax? Is it a lost language? Is it the ramblings of a madman? Or is it a code so brilliant that 5 centuries of human effort can't break it? It remains the silent witness, mocking our need to know everything. And finally, the Roman dodecahedrons, little 12-sided bronze objects found all over Europe. They are intricate, they are beautiful, and we have absolutely no idea what they do. There is not a single written word about them in any Roman text. Were they rangefinders for war? Knitting tools for making gloves, religious toys, candle holders? We have theories, but no answers. We started this journey looking for magic. We looked for curses, aliens, and supernatural powers. And in a way, I think we found something better. When we strip away the myths, we are left with the people. We see the Maya struggling to survive a changing climate just like we are. We see the Greeks getting high on gas to find hope in a chaotic world. We see the Egyptians mastering geometry to honor their dead. We see the Romans inventing materials that outlast empires. These weren't miracles. They were us. They had the same brains, the same fears, and the same ingenuity that we have today. They didn't need aliens to build the pyramids, and they didn't need magic to sail the oceans. They just needed curiosity. The mystery isn't that we were visited by something else. The mystery is how much we have forgotten about our own potential. And as we use our science to unlock these secrets, we aren't just learning about the past. We are remembering who we are.